Hello and welcome. I'm Rick Byros, President of Innovative Publishing, and I will be your host for today's MedTech Intelligence virtual event titled Connectivity and Beyond, Transforming Medical Devices into Personalized Connected Care Solutions. And today's sponsor is Biote. Before we get started, I'd like to just review a couple of housekeeping items. You are listening using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. If you are having audio issues, please log out and try to reconnect. Contact Veronica Allen via the chat box to let her know if you are continuing to have sound issues. Today's event will consist of 45 to 50-minute live presentation by our speakers. You will be able to participate in 2 live polls during today's presentation and encourage you to take advantage of this interactive opportunity. You'll also have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's panelists by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session after the presentations. You can download a PDF file from the slide deck from the handouts pane of your control panel. Please make sure to download the file during the webinar. The handouts will not be emailed to you after the webinar. Now, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Daniel Adler is the CEO and co-founder of Biote. Daniel has extensive experience in IT, internet, and telecom. Previously, he was leading business activities as part of a management team in leading Israeli high-tech companies in the areas of high-speed communication, data collection, and analysis. Biote specializes in providing a no-code, medical-grade, and fully secured cloud-based connected care platform, which allows to dramatically shorten the time it takes to transfer medical devices into fully compliant and cyber-secured connected care solutions from years to a few days. Also presenting with Daniel is Bernhard Kappe from Orthogonal. As the founder and president of Orthogonal, Bernhard applies lean startup principles, design thinking, and agile development to launch successful products for healthcare. As a product of the Chicago tech industry, he has a passion for launching successful software that makes a difference in the world and helping companies deliver more from their innovation pipelines. He leads the Chicago Lean Startup Circle, the Chicago Product Management Association, and the Chicago Lean Startup Challenge, a top startup competition based on lean startup principles. I'm going to turn it over to Daniel and Bernhard. Thank you, gentlemen.
So hi, everyone, and pleasure to be here. Today we are going to talk about how to transform medical devices into personalized connected care solution. I hope you can see my screen right now. And let's start a journey. Looking forward to hear your questions at the end, and of course, getting your response to the polls. Okay, so before I start drilling down into the challenges of connected care and how basically you should design and build your connected care solution, I'd like also to address some opportunities that are residing once you are moving towards connected care, which are above the common ones that relate mainly to device connectivity and remote patient management. Many of our customers today that are using our connected care platform are also taking a great advantage of utilizing the platform already in the clinical trial stage, where they previously faced challenges around patient drop-off and data accuracy of the clinical trial, and also the time it takes both to recruit and manage the clinical trials. And once you already start your connected care platform in the early stages of the clinical trial, you can enjoy the benefits of it by already centralizing the data that is coming from those trials and being able to address them and act in a more responsive manner and improve those trials later on. And same goes also after the stage of production to follow up on customers and patients with respect to post-clinical market follow-ups and also patient-reported outcomes. So once you are taking the opportunity to build a connected care platform, you should also think of those elements upfront before you're moving to design your system. Another aspect that you should take a look at, and it's a big opportunity for medical device companies or pharma companies or even healthcare providers and CROs when it comes to connected care, is that for the first time it enables you also to have direct engagement with the consumer, with the end user, which can be either the patient in most of the cases, but also the care provider, the clinician, in many of the opportunities. And basically, the fact that you have the ability to have direct communication and bidirectional communication with your end users, and let's say the patient, for example, then you can run and build different capabilities like adherence management, education capabilities to inform them about new things that are happening that are related to their treatment, to train them about how to use the device, and manage different aspects, maybe questions that they have through chat and other tools that you can implement as part of a connected care platform. And same goes when you're building a connected care solution when it comes to the ecosystem and the collaboration between the different entities and organizations that are taking part of the connected care solution. And it starts again from the patient and the clinician, but also the caregiver organization at a whole, and of course the medical device manufacturer or the pharma company. So the ability to be able to drive data bidirectionally from the device to the different players, the patients and the caregivers, and also between the patients themselves and the care providers, that really opens the door to many additional capabilities. And the fact that you are using in most of the connected care platform a cloud infrastructure, that also enables you to start and think and consider running some algorithms on the cloud to enhance the insights that are coming from the data and drive more actionable insights around that. So this is just to start with and give a bit better, a broader perspective on the opportunities that reside around the connected care platform. And before we drill down into the challenges and how to actually build it, we wanted to engage you with the first poll and ask you the first question. So basically, the question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for introducing a connected care solution? And the answers are A, there is no business incentive right now. B, a lack of in-house expertise. C, regulation barriers. Or D, market adoption.
So the poll responses are up, Daniel, and the results are: no business incentives is 7% of the participants, a lack of in-house expertise is 32%, regulation barriers is 34%, and market adoption is 27%.
So just to be clear, the biggest one is lack of in-house expertise or regulation barriers?
Daniel, they're pretty close. Regulation barriers is at 34%. Lack of in-house expertise is at 32%, followed by market adoption. There's only 7% at no business incentives.
Got it. Okay, so I'm happy to hear that, and because, or basically, I'm not that happy, but it basically aligns with what we thought are the main challenges and what we see via our customers. So if you look at what we see as the key challenges behind designing a connected care system, there are many challenges, of course, and there are 4 that we map as the most critical ones that most of our customers today face. And the first one is around the core expertise. Medical device companies and also pharma companies and even healthcare providers like remote patient monitoring companies and CROs and others, they are coming from the healthcare space. The medical device companies are coming from a hardware-oriented arena. And when talking about connected care, there are new areas that are not common for them and are around the areas of cloud like DevOps and IoT and cloud computing, and of course data collection and management, and of course all the issues of security, both of how to protect the data and the privacy of the data, but also around serviceability, how to make sure that you are not attacked by denial of services, and how you build a solution that can also scale as you grow. So these elements that are unique for the cloud environment are also unique for many of our customers and are a big challenge. The second one is exactly, as you also stated it in your poll, that basically the issue of compliance with a regulation, global and local ones. So it comes also around the issues of privacy and cybersecurity, where you have regional regulations like HIPAA in the US and GDPR in Europe, but also within those regions, you have different policies in countries like California and Virginia, and same goes for Europe in states like California and Virginia, and also in Europe in countries like Germany and Italy and France. The regulations are quite different. And to understand the regulations and to know how to comply with them, that's definitely a big challenge. And those are also evolving. So basically, even if you comply to them right now, it doesn't really mean that you will comply to them in 2 years from now, as new things are arising both on the privacy side and also on the cybersecurity side. And the last point around regulation is that you need to make sure that things like consent management, anonymization, and de-identification, which are key elements in the privacy aspect, are being taken care of properly. Then the third point, which many of our customers are facing, and it's quite a significant one, in totally different aspect, it's the integration part. Most of the customers that we address are coming with big concerns on how do they integrate into the EHR systems, even if it's a similar one that is being used in several facilities. The implementation per each facility can be totally different. And the point here is how you can actually manage this challenge in the most cost-effective manner, and that's something we will touch upon. And the last point, again, a totally different aspect, it's the point that now that we have the opportunity of having a direct-to-consumer approach, then you need to know how to manage it properly, so you have, you're utilizing that channel in the best possible way. And here you have things around experience management, how you address the patients, adherence management, and engagement management. So this is just a bunch of challenges that we see as major ones that you need to cope with when transforming medical device into a connected care platform. And this basically means that journey towards connected care can be complex and costly. If you do it, of course, in-house, you need to build all those capabilities internally. And what we normally recommend to our customers, whether they go to an approach using our platform or by utilizing another solution, is that the best way is to use either a service, an experienced company that has the ability and already did a lot of connected care solutions, or to utilize a platform that can significantly reduce your efforts to get to that point. From our experience, it can be up to 50x reduction in time and cost to market, and up to 5x reduction in operating expenses. Since once you build a solution, you also need to maintain it and make sure it's up to date with the latest on cybersecurity, privacy, and also with the different functionalities that you want to run. So this is a bit about the journey and the challenges and how we recommend to approach them. Now, drilling a bit further into a connected care platform and what does it mean, we actually segment it into 3 pillars that you need to take care of and address. The first one is normally the main one that people are approaching us to solve, and this is the connectivity part. It's how to connect the medical devices to the cloud in an easy way and in a secure and private manner. Basically, here we see that there is a need and a trend to go to as simple as possible solutions that have templates or low code or no code capabilities in order to bridge that gap of connecting the medical device into the cloud quickly. The second pillar is around collaboration, basically, meaning that you want to improve the healthcare outcome through collaboration between the different stakeholders. So provide different communication channels and capabilities between the patients, the caregiver, and the medical device or pharma companies to drive more insights and more data. And the last one is around care. And here it's again the direct engagement with the patient or with the end user, the physician, to create a personalized environment as much as possible. And here it's basically to run different AI algorithms and machine learning algorithms, plus driving customized functions like questionnaires and so on, to make it more adapted to the specific needs of the end user. So these are the 3 pillars that we see that you need to take care of once designing a connected care platform. And of course, all of that needs to run on a regulated environment that can comply with the need to have FDA or CE approvals, and of course, with their different privacy and cybersecurity regulations. So how practically it looks like. So, we just talked about the high-level approach. Basically, what does it mean? So when we look on a connected care platform, we see it as a 2-part solution. One is the backend, which is the cloud part, and the second one is the front end, which is the part that interfaces to the end users of the system. It starts here from the left side of the patients and their devices, and the device can be connected to the cloud, either directly through a Wi-Fi or a cellular communication, 4G, 5G networks, even wireline sometimes. And the second option is to connect through a gateway. And a gateway can be either your mobile phone or a dedicated gateway that normally what it does, it takes Bluetooth, a low energy communication called BLE, that is communicating with the device, and then converts it into data that can be either over Wi-Fi or over cellular communication and drives it to the cloud. The main difference between those 2 approaches is basically the type. In most of the cases, it's the type of the medical device. Normally, when the medical device is stationary, either in the hospital or in the clinic or at home, the common connectivity method would be either Wi-Fi or cellular communication. However, once the device is something which is ready to a specific patient and is in most cases also a wearable, then the most common interface for communication will be BLE, since most of the patients also carry a phone, a mobile phone that can be used as the gateway. So these are the two main approaches to send data from the medical device to the cloud. And in many cases, once you use a mobile phone as a gateway, you also implement an application to support the patient itself in the activation of the device and in the management of the treatment. And this is what we talked about, patient engagement. On the other roles, there is three main roles that we see that manage the backend part mainly. One is the console that needs to define the workflows of the system in a very flexible manner, to define the entities, maybe it be the devices themselves or the organizations or the end users. And eventually this console role is to create two main portals to manage the overall system. One is the manufacturer portal, and this is mainly to manage the devices that belong to the system, and then the correlation and relation between the devices and the owners of the devices, if it's the patients or if it's a care provider, and this is more towards the asset management and device management part. And the second portal that can come in two forms, either out of the box or through an API. API is an application program interface. So basically an interface going out from the cloud towards another system, a third-party system, to drive the data directly to an existing portal, organization portal of the care provider. This one is basically there to monitor the patient itself, its condition, if it's the biomarkers coming from the device, or the treatment that is being provided. And eventually, in the cloud itself, you have the different workflows that are needed to be supported for communicating between the patient, the caregiver, the medical devices themselves, things like patient monitoring functionalities, device management functionalities, patient engagement, and so on. So eventually, when we look on the platform itself, again, it can cater many different elements in it, but the main parts that I'd like to discuss today are around the different users that needs to be supported in such platform, like the manufacturer, the caregiver, and the patient, aspects of privacy and cybersecurity, and aspects of patient-related workflow that are supported by the platform, including the ability to run algorithms in the cloud, and of course, not less important, again, the ability to integrate with third-party systems like EHR systems through an open API, application programming interface. So here, eventually, the idea is that you are able to easily adopt and customize the output or the input of the interface to any third-party system in a matter of basically hours. So one of the things that we see, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's how difficult is it for medical device company and other companies that are operating medical devices to integrate with EHR facilities and systems, and by adopting an approach of a flexible API solution that can adapt to the different platforms, can really save times in that eventually translate to things that are instead of weeks, to do it in hours. And once you have so many integrations, that becomes eventually a big part of the efforts. So I will focus on the three first ones and drill down to each and every one of them. So when talking about the different personas that you need to take care of in a connected care platform, we segment them into three. One is the patient side, where you need to take care of workflows around patient engagement, adherence management, education of the patient, especially, again, once it's a remote operation, when he's at home without having next to him a care provider, an expert. So how to operate the device, how to make sure that he's actually adhering to the treatment properly, and that he's actually getting better. The second type of personas that the platform needs to support are the manufacturers. And in there, you see three different roles that are normally important and need to get inputs from the system and provide inputs to the system. It's the customer service and support with respect to the devices and to whom they belong and updating the software and so on and so forth. It's, of course, the product and the R&D guys that needs to develop the next generation product and get the feedback on how it operates. And last but not least, it's the data scientists that want to add capabilities and drive insights out of the collected data that comes from those devices. And the last one is, of course, the care provider. So the ability to provide, again, out-of-the-box capabilities to the care provider to monitor the patient, to enable them to prevent and provide proper care and even predict the situation from happening, of course, while integrating that into their existing workflows. So here again, the APIs are critical, as you don't want to provide another platform to the care provider to use. You want to make sure that outputs from the connected care platform are inputted eventually into the existing solutions that they're already using and into their existing workflows. The second element is the cybersecurity and privacy, and also here there are many aspects. We can talk 1 hour only on that part, so I'm trying to squeeze it into 1 minute or 2 minutes of discussion. Here the main element is to make sure that once you build a connected care platform or you're utilizing an already made one, it already taken into consideration the architecture of the security as part of the design. And I'll give you 2 examples. When we designed our platform, we made sure that each microservice is basically a key element of the solution that is doing a certain function, will be separated from all the other microservices. So if we have a microservice that handles the audit or handles the data that is being collected from the device, it will be a separate one, and all the interaction between the different microservices will be authenticated, authorized with certifications and with tokens. So even if someone hacks into one microservice, he will not be able to expand from there and go to the other ones. So you can protect better the data. And the second point is to use a very sophisticated access control mechanism in our case, we're using something is called attribute-based access control, that basically enables you to define for each attribute in the system the permissions and the authorization that you provide based on the different roles that exist in the system. And then on other aspects, we have the issue of how we handle personal healthcare information, how you make sure to separate it from the other data that is in and security in a different way. And in that case, also run different elements like de-identification and anonymization functions, and make sure that the data is highly protected and cannot be leaked. So that's on the design part. And then once you have the system in place, you need to make sure that continuous implementation is smooth and straightforward. So you are running a penetration test on a regular basis. You make sure it's easy to add security patches without harming the activity of the system, so keeping it 24/7 without downtime and still being able to update it. So for example, just the other day, there was a big security breach around the Java log module. We immediately created a patch to it. We informed our customers about the patch and the implications of the patch, and we got their consent to implement it. And in 3 hours, it was already updated in all of our customer systems. So the ability to continuously implement best practices is critical when designing a collected care solution. And of course, I mentioned earlier the continuous compliance to standards that are constantly evolving in different countries and different places in the world. So this is just one example. I run through it very quickly of how to do the practical implementation. You have the different portals that are accessing the data. You have the devices that are sending information into the system. You need to make sure that there is a segregation between the different microservices, as I mentioned, to the databases themselves, and to have them in separate locations, physical locations. So if one is being attacked and hacked or denial of service, you have another option to continue and operate. Like in the case we had the other week with Amazon, the Virginia site was down. So of course we had alternative sites that continued to work and didn't harm at all the operation of our customers. And then moving to the support of patient-related workflows and care-related algorithms. So basically, Connected Care platform needs to be able to save you time and enable you to evolve with your product plans and roadmap. The best way to do it is, again, to use a no-code platform that has predefined templates and attributes that you can cater to make sure that they're supporting the workflows between the different entities in the system, and that it enables you to easily add different tools as you grow. So you can start, for example, with a system that doesn't have a questionnaire module or an adherence module, but later on add it to the platform as you need. And another important item when talking about workflows and the backend is to have the ability to run easily algorithms in the cloud. Now, this is something that some of the customers are already utilizing heavily, and some are still not, didn't start yet implementing. But the idea is that cloud eventually provides you a lot of benefits, including the ability to run algorithms in the cloud. Why to do that? Because eventually you can move and shift processes from the device itself, and by that reducing its cost, to the cloud. Of course, it has other aspects, you know, of running medical procedures in the cloud. It makes it more complex, but in some cases you don't have actually alternatives, and it provides you also the ability to save the battery life of the device if it's working on a battery. It enables you to manage better hardware upgrades and seamless upgrades from a centralized point. So a lot of benefits using the cloud for running algorithms. And again, also here, how to do it in the most effective way. It's to use a platform that enables you to hook up into the platform easily. We call it through a plugin mechanism to run your algorithm without impacting the entire system. So you don't need to know how to write a full-blown code solution for the cloud. You just need to know how to write your algorithm, either it's in Python or in MATLAB, and just plug it in easily into the workflow, again, in a drag and drop manner. And eventually make sure that, again, your cloud platform is ready and either already supports or will be able to support in the future patient engagement workflows around adherence management, to be able to configure and adhere to different protocols, track them and alert in case there is non-adherence, and assist whenever it's needed. So that's one example. Another example of patient engagement is around interaction with the patient, around questionnaires, the ability to ask the patient, you know, questions that will, subjective questions that will add a very important element to the data that is coming from the device itself, to the objective data, to enable interactive training capabilities. We've developed a platform in the backend that enables you to easily ingest new videos and new user manuals to be shared and to be popped up to the patient through his application, mobile application or web application, so he can get the latest and be trained and be knowledgeable about his solution. And of course, chat modules and other marketing modules that you can actually utilize once you are using a connected solution. So this is, again, in a nutshell, in a very high-level overview, the main things that you should take into consideration when building a connected care solution. And before moving to how our platform look like and giving you some few words about BioT as a company, we got to the second poll. So Veronica, I'm handing it back to you.
Okay, Veronica's, there we go. Okay, so the poll will be up for about 45 seconds. And again, we invite everyone to participate. The information provided in the first poll was very helpful. And Daniel, we do have several questions coming up that I'm monitoring and will address after Bernhard's presentation.
Sounds great. Let me know when I can continue.
Okay, poll is closed. And just to give you some insight, 11%, the question is, do you plan to implement connected care solutions? 11% say we already have one. 13% yes, and looking for partners. 66%, which makes sense, say it's on our roadmap. So they're planning it. And 11% said unlikely.
Okay, cool. I think it's makes sense as you mentioned. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Okay. So just to finalize my part before I hand it over to Bernhard, we at BioT, we provide a connected care platform. The most significant part of it is, of course, on the cloud side. It's based on tens of microservices that each one takes care of different part of the connected care solution, starting from the infrastructure layer, going to the device and data layers, the privacy layers, and then eventually to the engagement, analytics, and integration layers. That's on the cloud side. It's a no-code platform, so basically it's very easy to integrate new devices and create workflows to support your needs. And on the front-end side, we provide a console and a portal for the manufacturer and for the organization to manage the data in the system and different elements. We also provide an SDK for the mobile phone once it acts as a gateway, and provide also the interfaces towards the medical devices to be able to easily integrate into the platform, and at the same time also to integrate the data of the platform with third-party systems like EHR systems. Few words about, skip this slide, few words about BioT. As a company, we were founded in 2012. We are located in Israel, Germany, and of course the US. 45 people, tens of thousands of devices already connected by more than 20 customers that we have in different areas of connectivity, different areas of medical devices, from stationary solutions to wearables, from implantables to non-touch vital sign monitoring solutions, etc. It's a regulated cloud platform and basically can work mainly on AWS, but also on other cloud platforms like Azure and Google. So that's it on my end. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you found my discussion and my session interesting.
All right, let me start mine here. Let me know when you see this.
Bernhard, we're
We
seeing
are-
just a white screen.
Interesting. Let me try this again.
Daniel, if you could mute yourself while Bernard's presenting, that'd be helpful. Same thing, it went to the, instead of going to
Very odd.
presentation mode, it went right into just a white screen.
Interesting. Well, let's see how we can manage this.
Okay, Bernhard, I can open the slide that you just sent me, and then
Perfect.
we'll pop it up. Okay,
Okay,
we go.
let's do that.
yeah, just so that we can just make sure. All right, here we go. Give me 1 second. And
Perfect. So let's move to the next slide. I'm going to introduce my company, Orthogonal. We design and build software as a medical device and connected device systems. In most cases, that involves connectivity to devices, mobile apps, cloud, and AI algorithms. We absolutely build some of these things from scratch, but in many cases, we can leverage platforms to accelerate the process and reduce the costs. Next slide. We work with venture-backed startups, enterprise medical devices, and pharma firms, as well as some tech and consumer firms that are building software as a medical device or connected device solutions. Next slide. And really, in most cases, we help them build initial products, but also then quickly evolve and scale those products over time. So we've seen a fair bit of kind of what are the different use cases and the costs and how you can leverage platforms appropriately. And wanted to talk a little bit through that. Next slide, please. So the question really here is, how much time and money are you going to save with a platform? Daniel mentioned sort of how potentially how much time and money you can save. I wanted to go through some real world examples around this. Next slide. So a lot of this, it depends, right? In our experience, if you have pretty low complexity and low differentiation in what you're doing, you can probably leverage a lot of out-of-the-box configuration on the platforms, and you can save, in our experience, somewhere around 80% or so. At the other end of this, where you can still leverage a platform, but you have high complexity and high differentiation, you're going to be maintaining a lot of custom device functionality on the mobile app, in the cloud, and in that case, the savings in our experience is somewhere around 20%. Obviously, you can be somewhere in between, but that is what we've seen in terms of how much you can save. Regardless of the complexity, it is important to pick the right kind of platform for what you're doing, because if you pick the wrong one that doesn't meet some of your needs, you could end up having to redo it, spend more money than if you had picked things in the right way. Next slide, please. So let me do a couple of examples. The first one is for a CPAP machine, right? So these are mostly, located in people's homes. In many cases, they are rented out or serviced by third parties. And so one of the important things is to track location and functioning of the machine. Another important thing that you need to do here because of reimbursement is to track usage. You get very often reimbursed based on that usage. So those are what CPAP manufacturers initially started out with in terms of what's on the connected care platform. But over time, this has evolved partially through changes in the market and through competition that things like encouraging adherence or changing behavior to improve outcomes or even over-the-air firmware updates are things that are on beyond version 1 roadmap for CPAP manufacturers. If we look at the next slide. So there's a couple of considerations that that you have here. One back. One of them is, how are you going to connect the device, cellular or Bluetooth? If you're connecting the device via cellular, you don't really require any patient engagement. And if there's not a whole lot of data that you are frequently sending over, that may be a really, really good option. And in fact, that is what some CPAP manufacturers like ResMed have done, is have cellular connectivity. At this point, the costs of cellular connectivity are a lot lower than they used to be for just device data. The other option is Bluetooth connectivity, but in that case, you need patient engagement, right? In other words, if you're not forcing the user to have a mobile application in order to use the machine, you need to provide value to the patient to get the engagement so you get the data. And even in that case, if you're not requiring it, you're not going to get 100% engagement. In our experience, if you're getting 40% of the people actually using the application, you're doing pretty well. You can get higher, but you have to work typically to get to that information. Most of the basic information you're getting, you probably don't need in a real-time fashion, and you don't need that much information, so you're probably not dealing with time series data, although you can see going forward at some point that you might get there. But the thing that you need to do for those future things is really thinking very much about building engagement and adherence. So thinking about how that fits into the lifestyle. That means a lot of user research, product analytics on how people are actually using it, and then testing of interventions. So in this case, for the baseline, especially if you're using cellular, you can probably get a ton of just out-of-the-box value out of a platform. But the more you end up having to think about that user engagement, it's not paint by numbers. It's really fitting into the lifestyle and iterating through the process of building the application and getting feedback on how people are using it, how those interventions work over a period of time. So at that point, you're going to be spending a lot more on the mobile application part in particular. Next slide. If we look at an insulin pump, these insulin pumps now are getting more and more sophisticated. They are pulling in data from continuous glucose monitors and other third-party data. The mobile applications are and watch applications, et cetera, are there for real-time display and alerting. Very often right now, state of the art is also sharing a lot of this data with clinicians and then sharing back-end data for capture and analysis. In future versions, folks are looking at sharing that data with family and then using some of that data captured analysis to potentially remotely change the therapy settings. Typically now, by clinicians, but you can see at some future date that those changes might actually be automatic based on AI algorithms analyzing the data. Next slide. So if we look at this, this is a lot more complicated situation than the CPAP machine. We definitely have patient data that is part of this. So all the things about permissions, tracking, deletion, et cetera, HIPAA, GDPR, et cetera, are strong considerations here. And this is definitely where you can leverage a platform heavily for a lot of those types of things. You also, for an insulin pump, have a lot of time series data, right? You're getting data 24/7 every couple of minutes. And this is another place where you want to be careful of with the platform. We've worked with different platforms. Some platforms do a much better job with time series data than others. Biote handles time series data. Some others don't. It can mean if it's designed incorrectly that you can have a lot higher costs, but also that the performance is of how you're retrieving and analyzing that data is not appropriate. So important thing for this type of thing that you'd want to look at. In this case, you also can have device functionality on the app and in the cloud. So in other words, the mobile app and some things that are on the cloud may be part of a medical device or maybe a separate medical device. So you want to think about that and how the platform can support what you're building and connectivity to that, but also realize you're going to be owning that medical device. You're the manufacturer of record of those mobile apps and of the cloud that may be leveraging the platform. Obviously, for this, human factors, use errors, all of these things are critical. And if you're thinking about the Bluetooth connectivity, this is continuous monitoring. There's a lot of background processing and alerting that you have to do here as part of this. So there are lots of Bluetooth edge cases that you need to worry about, and chances are you're going to have to do more than what is in a Bluetooth SDK. You have a lot of patient risk within those Bluetooth edge cases. For your algorithms, data provenance and data quality are important. Again, these are things where a platform can help you, but you're also going to need to, because you have device functionality on the mobile phone, on the cloud, you're going to need to pay attention to changes to the smartphone operating systems on the hardware, as well as the changes to the platform and cloud infrastructure in order to maintain compliance as you have frequent changes going on. So in this case, chances are you're going to be doing a lot of custom development and you're probably getting a lot less value or savings out of the platform. I wouldn't say less value, but less savings in this case, because you have a lot of your own functionality that is probably not out of the box platform functionality. Next slide. So we've got a couple general recommendations in terms of best practices. First thing is really start with the problem you're solving, not with the platform. So, really understand how you're creating value for the patient and the clinician, the journey and the lifestyle, how you contribute, what you're asking from them. In our experience, when you are building patient-facing connected device solutions, user experience is key and is not trivial. You don't get it right just by putting it together. You really have to design for the patient, get feedback, and make adjustments as you go along. You need to understand where's the complexity and differentiation in what you're doing. How much of what you're doing is really unique, and how much of it is, oh, this is just like everyone else. The more it is like other people, the more likely it is that the platform will already have functionality that you can leverage. And then, of course, what is the medical device and what is not? Where is that? Where is the risk? And how do you segregate that? That will help you better manage your long-term costs and how you evolve your product. And how does the functionality integrate with the platform, and how for your system and the supporting systems like a platform do you maintain a validated state? Last slide. So to summarize best practices, really, start with the problem you're solving, not with the platform. You also have to understand how your solution may evolve. And as you saw with the two examples, in both of these cases, there's a lot of evolution that happens after you get the initial connected care solution out there. And then realize that it's not a build versus buy. You're going to be building and you're going to be buying. It's a question of how much you're going to be building and how much you're going to be buying. You want to be realistic about that. It is not a no cost kind of thing, just buy the platform. And you really want to evaluate the platforms both to fit your current needs and for flexibility as you evolve, because your solution is going to evolve. And the last thing I would recommend is to pilot with platforms. You really want to test, the areas where you where there is complexity, and to see and leverage what you're getting out of the platform, because once you're on the platform and using the platform, it is not so easy to switch out platforms on the back end. That's it. We're ready for questions.
Terrific. All right, Daniel, you want to join us?
Here we go. 1 second.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, great presentations. Provoked quite a bit of questions. So we are running a little bit late, but I want to get through all of these, and they're important questions. So we're just going to plow through them if it's okay with everyone. I'm going to, I guess, direct this to both of you, and you guys can kind of decide who would start and if one would have, if the other would have any other thoughts. Can you connect devices and devices networks also through WLAN Wi-Fi to the gateway smartphones?
I'm not sure I understood the question. Can you again repeat it?
Let me read it again. And again, I'm trying to read these verbatim. Can you connect devices and device networks also through Wi-Fi to the gateway?
Okay, so basically you can do that as well. The point is why you want to do that. If you can connect it directly to the cloud and gain the same functionality, then great. If you want to do it through a gateway because you want to use some kind of SDK on the gateway itself and run some other features throughout the front-end side, then definitely that's another option.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Daniel. I would add to that there are security considerations and integration considerations as well. So if you have a device that is in a hospital, let's say, in a network, then there are, some additional things you need to think about in terms of interacting with hospital IT, in terms of making sure you are allowed on the Wi-Fi network, et cetera. If you are leveraging someone's home Wi-Fi network. I think the two most popular passwords for home Wi-Fi networks are password and 1234. So there are security
Yeah, both of mine.
considerations for home Wi-Fi. There you go. So there, there are those are additional considerations. That's why in many cases people bypass Wi-Fi, but it is possible to do so.
Okay, we're kind of on a roll on this topic. Can devices also be connected through a FHIR device profile that corresponds to the IHE PCD profiles?
I think you can leverage different FHIR configurations, absolutely, and FHIR resources. I think that can be, for certain things, a good way of storing data. But again, there are for things that involve time series data, CGMs, et cetera, they're not really designed well for that type of data. But if you have sort of, point measurements and things like that, I think there's already good, for many of those, there are, good resources available there.
Okay. I think this is this is a question for Daniel. Are your system APIs FHIR RESTful APIs?
So basically, since they are very flexible, they are supporting RESTful states, and they can comply with different standards that are there. It really depends on exactly what type of protocols we are talking about around FHIR and other types of protocol. But generally speaking, yes, it's very straightforward and very easy to support.
Okay. All right, next question. Are there accepted practices or templates to evaluate which platform is the best for a certain use case? Bernard, you want to take a stab at that?
I can take that on. No, I don't think so. I think really it's possible that at some point someone like Gartner or et cetera might do a full evaluation there, but frankly platforms are all evolving as they go along, as are the use cases. So really you've got to do the work to understand what it is that you are trying to do, and where the advantage and the value to you is of the connected care system you're building. I don't think there's a shortcut to it. Yeah.
I would just add here that even someone says it has a HIPAA compliant platform, you need to really dig into that and see what it really means and what does it actually include in it, and see that it covers the things that you need to address in your solution.
Okay. What is your solution of connecting a large number of medical devices through Bluetooth to your gateway?
So I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but basically it doesn't really matter if it's one device or 10 devices. Today, you can use, there are many different hardware gateways that can take a bunch of medical Bluetooth interfaces in and then output it either to Wi-Fi or cellular towards the cloud. So here we are very flexible. We are working with many different solutions that are in the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What are the requirements for medical devices to connect them to the cloud?
So go ahead, Ron.
I mean, it all depends. I think there are obviously cybersecurity requirements, and there are lots of things, published around that. The FDA has has guidance for both, pre-market and post-market, and there are some standards around that. I think it really depends on your use case in terms of that. What is in the medical device, which in some cases the mobile app could be part of the medical device, or some aspect of the cloud could be part of the medical device, in which case you have medical device software requirements and system requirements that are part of that. In other cases, it's not medical device functionality that's on the cloud or in the mobile app. You're just pulling data out, and that system is an MDDS, which may be not, certainly by the FDA, no longer regulated.
Okay. Let's see. Are there some conditions that are more challenging to manage remotely and virtually than others? Daniel, want to take a stab at that?
Whenever you have more sensitive devices like implants, then it's more complex. You are not just connecting directly to the implant. You normally have like a shoulder belt and a gateway. So several components in between to do the connectivity. Also, in many cases, in order to make sure that there is no even a single chance to tamper with the device, you do the communication in a one-way, in a single direction, so only from the device to the cloud and not vice versa. So then you cannot do firmware updates from remote. There are different challenges there to maintain the device as secure as possible. So that's definitely one of the more interesting and complex scenarios to resolve.
Okay.
I would add to that, if you are passively collecting data, right, and leveraging someone's smartphone in order to do that, there's definitely a lot more complexity to that. And one of the big reasons for that is that the mobile operating systems are basically controlling when you have Bluetooth access, when you don't, in the background, and there are all kinds of edge cases around that can make it much more difficult to reliably get data to the cloud in a real-time fashion.
Okay. Couple more questions. What are some of the major pitfalls that device makers confront in the development of connected solutions?
So I think that there are a few. I'll do it briefly. First of all, they don't design the system to look beyond the connectivity part. They are only looking on what they need for the next 3 or 6 months, and rather than looking on the big picture and where they want to be in 3 or 4 years. Second, they in many cases think that it's less complex than it actually is. Building a solution, so they think they can do something in 3 months, up and running, and everything is great. And eventually, it's much more complex. We try to show it today how many different factors need to put in to build a solution. So it's really, if you do it, you do it on your own. It's quite of a challenge. And third, many think that having a connected care platform as part of their own development roadmap and as their core expertise is what will differentiate them from others. I think that's a mistake. Basically, they should focus on the medical device capabilities or on the software as a medical device capabilities, and leave the cloud and the plumbing for off-the-shelf solutions, rather than thinking that you need to have it, internally as part of your core competency and differentiation.
Mm-hmm. Bernard,
I would add, yeah. So I agree with a lot of what you say there. I think another thing that happens is that, don't design for the users, right? You just figure, here's features and functionality, people will use it, rather than something, especially if it's patient facing, that is fits into the lifestyle and that they have incentives to use. I think another one is that we come across is if you have a more complex case of device connectivity, not really testing that integrated system as you're developing, especially on the Bluetooth side. We see so many issues where that is left late in the process, and if integration points are dealt with early and often in the process, and you are continuously testing that, far less of a chance of delays and having to rework firmware and verification protocols, et cetera. And then the last one is really thinking about, the fact that it's not a static solution. You have to design for change, and in many cases, what you are doing is going to have to either stay ahead of the competition or respond to the competition and changes the markets, which means you have to think about how you're going to rapidly iterate and evolve your solution as the market and the platforms and everything else change around you.
Okay, one last question, and this is, I believe, for Daniel. How has your no-code platform impacted training for the people using it?
Yeah, so we just recently launched that, and with the first customers that we engaged on that, that's really amazing. You can no longer need on the integration side to have developers doing the work. It's really using the manual, and you can actually be in a couple of hours up and running with a full-blown system just to start testing it and playing with it. That's something that was not there before, and that's really cool. So I think that the way we see it, and hopefully it will continue and evolve in the future, that it will mainly require you to read the manual, see some videos, rather than doing a lot of training around code development and transfer of knowledge and information from developer to developer.
Great, thank you. Well, that concludes today's webinar and our program. I wanted to thank both of you, Bernhard and Daniel, and thank BioTE for the sponsorship of this webinar. It was great information. The archive of this recording will be hosted on medtechintelligence.com. This is a topic that we'll be covering quite a bit in 2020. And look forward to seeing everyone again in the new year for some new programs. Thank you again. Have a great day or night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.